Hi, Mileena here, and this is probably going to be a bit of a hot mess of a video, but today is day 3 of the Reading Rush / Booktubeathon for 2019, and the video challenge for today is to, it was made by Reagan over at Peruse Project, and it's like bookish cooking, and it's basically to make or like cook or put together a meal or something that like has to do with a book, like lots of people are doing like Laura Jean's cookies and like stuff like that. And yeah, so a couple of months ago, about like 6-7 months ago for Christmas, I got as a gift, a coworker and I, we exchanged cookbooks as a gift, and she knew that I'd been wanting this for a while, so she got me the unofficial Hunger Games cookbook by Emily Anasar Baines. I could be pronouncing that wrong. But, so, it's been 7 months and I still haven't used this cookbook. I thought this was the perfect opportunity to, because it's fandom Hunger Games, like book-related cooking. And if I haven't used it in this long, maybe this is finally the opportunity I need. So, we have this. And what I am making, since I literally have like $0 in my bank account, and I was like, oh, I have no money to buy like ingredients and whatnot. I don't really have too much time to make a meal. Lots of people are skipping this this challenge as well because it's just very time consuming. I was like, what recipe in here? It requires the least amount of ingredients and the least amount of time, but that can still be like, hey, I made some sort of effort to make a meal that was book related from this book. So, on page 4, there is the fearfully fried potatoes. Now, I'm going to try to get through this real quick, but I thought that it was really cute. There's like a little excerpt here that says, while most things related to the capital focus on opulence, this simple recipe yields a rich flavor, which makes it a great dish to help Katniss and Peeta transition from life in District 12 to the capital. This first breakfast is served on the train as it winds its way to the capital, an image that reinforces the idea of transition this recipe imparts. It's from chapter 4 of the Hunger Games. And, yeah, it's kind of, basically, it just requires extra virgin olive oil, or, EVOO if you watch Rachel Ray, onions, potatoes, salt and pepper, and I just personally decided to purchase cilantro just to give it an extra amount of flavor. So yeah, it's just basically like chopped up potatoes and onions and all that jazz. So I'm just gonna do sort of a cooking video, but not like quite in depth or put together as most cooking YouTube people, because I've never done this before. But I just went to the Walmart market and got all the ingredients, and now I'm gonna start putting all that shiz together. Okay, so the dogs are playing at my feet because of course they wait till now. We have our onion. It's a red onion, by the way. That's what the recipe calls for. It calls for half a cup of red onion, 3 cups of potatoes, and then I'm just gonna do however much seems appropriate in terms of cilantro, but we'll see how that goes. Fun fact, made it a New Year's resolution to learn how to cook. So here's another opportunity rearing its head at me, and I've made a couple of meals since then, but I've had kind of a lull, and usually I end up procrastinating knowing that I'm going to have to buy ingredients and whatnot, but this is a good motivator because within the past 2 years that I've done the Booktubeathon, I have not missed a challenge, like a video challenge or an Instagram challenge or a reading challenge. That's why I'm really glad that this year, doing the 7 books isn't a requirement for today. Also, while I'm doing this, as mine as well, give y'all a reading update of how days 1 through currently 3 have been treating me. Day 1, I read about 160 pages. I believe that's what I ended up logging into the official Reading Rush website. I read about 100, 200 or so, well, like 100 or so pages of Stay Sweet by Siobhan Vivian, which I have since then finished. I've also read the entirety on day 2 of volume 2 of Sunstone, and on my original TBR I had Carrie, which, like I explained in that video, I was reading in Spanish to test myself on reading in Spanish for the first time, because for those of you who don't know, I'm Hispanic. I have a moderate understanding of reading in Spanish, but mainly just like text messages between family and whatnot. So I wanted to get a better, there's the onions. I wanted to get a better like comprehension of that, but the thing is, it took me like an hour to read like 20 pages just because I had to research like the 1 in 20 words that I didn't know every time, and it just seemed like it was very time consuming for the time constraints of a readathon, so I figured I would just save that and read that next month. So I looked for something that was of equal or lesser page count on my Goodreads app to see what I owned that was like pretty much the same, that was also an author's first book, and it took a hot minute, but I eventually realized that Looking for Alaska is a good qualifier for that. So if you watched my Tooth, Truth, and a Lie video that was for yesterday, that is what that was. The lie was that I have read Looking for Alaska. That's actually the book that I switched Carrie out for on my TBR. So I wasted time reading about 20 pages of Carrie, but I've since then been like about 40 pages into Looking for Alaska. I'm a big John Green fan, but I've never read that one, and it's getting turned into a Hulu TV show next year, I believe, so I figured it was as good a time as any to start getting into that. So, I have I have my red onions cut up. Which you could see was only about half of the onion. And I'm going to cut the cilantro and like skin the potatoes and stuff off camera, and I'll come back when all of that's done and I'm ready to start frying them. Okay. So, first step's done. All of the things are here. The potatoes are like all nice and diced. The onions are all cut. They made my eyes water pretty heavily, and I got the cilantro done. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put in some olive oil into this skillet. And the directions for the recipe say to saute the onions in the pan first, and then later add the potatoes. And that's just when I'll add the cilantro and all that jazz, which I might have put a little bit too much oil, but you know what? Cooking is a learning process. So, grab the pan here. I'm gonna just turn that up a bit more and not dump everything on the actual stove. Okay, so to finish up a summary of what I was saying earlier, to summarize, I have completed challenge 1, which is to read a book with purple on the cover. I've read Stay Sweet by Siobhan Vivian. It's a book about these girls who run an ice cream stand. And they're used to it all being women, and then like one day for circumstances a dude has to take over as their boss and whatnot, and it's them coping with that. And yes, it was a lovely slice of life book that's especially good if you like sweets and ice cream and all that stuff. And then I've also completed the that was also for Read a Book You Meant to Read last year, because I'd read like the beginning of it last year, put it down until like a year later. And then I read Sunstone Volume 2 for the challenge of read a book in the same sitting the entire time. So, we did that. One moment. I'm gonna find my spatula. It's right here. So yeah, it said just to basically saute the onions until they're translucent. So you kind of want to eyeball it, you know? Once again, I don't know if you should be taking cooking advice from me, but I'm somebody who's made about like 8 meals this year. Don't want to brag. And evidently, I can make a kick-ass 5-layer mac and cheese thing from the Hannah Hart cookbook, My Drip Kitchen, which I might do that as a regular series on my channel. I might start making meals from different cookbooks and then just seeing which cookbook I tend to like the meal better of and whatnot. We might do that. But yes, the onions, if you can't hear or tell, are sauteing. They finally started making that noise. And yes, I'm gonna let you know in a second when we're ready to add in the potatoes. Hey, me again. Okay, so it's set to cook them until they're translucent. I'm assuming that means they're like thinner or something, which some of them are, and some of them are not. I accidentally got a little skin in there. But, yeah, I think for the most part, they're pretty translucent. I don't know if you can see that. You know, get it right up in there. So I think it's ready for the potatoes and, as an extension, the cilantro. So, I don't know if it's going to fit 2 cups worth of potatoes. Oh yeah, since we kind of already ate / just got food that we might eat later, I cut the recipe in half. So instead of, I believe it's a cup of red onions, I did half a cup. And then instead of 3 cups of the chopped potatoes, I did 2 cups, which isn't exactly half. 1.5 would be good, but I didn't want to waste half of the potato, and yeah, so that's what we did. So now things are happening. Yeah, we added this, and it's going. So this is kind of a look of how it looks like now. If you don't focus, it kind of looks like I'm making scrambled eggs or some jazz, which, you know, this is kind of looking like right now, but it's fine because it smells good, it looks good, and I'm assuming it'll taste good. So I'm gonna let these brown a bit, and we'll check in like a minute or so when they're ready for the salt, the pepper, and I have here a bag of mozzarella cheese that I bought last time when I cooked. I think they were like taquitos or something. I don't know. I cooked something. So I got the cheese. I don't know if it's still good. I'm gonna check the expiration date on that and all that jazz. But if it works, maybe I'll sprinkle a little bit of mozzarella cheese on top. You know, people like cheese on potatoes. I don't know. The thing is, the original recipe was only about 3 ingredients long. Is literally potatoes, onions, salt, and pepper. And I get that the little paragraph in the cookbook was like, oh, it's a good transition meal for Peter and Katniss because it's not all bougie and complex, and it was good for them to eat on the train of leaving their old life and entering their new one. And I like that. I like the symbolism of that. But I feel like adding like 2 or 3 more ingredients is not going to make it a super complex bougie meal. It's still pretty simple. So, yeah, I'll check in like a few seconds. Okay, cooking update. The potatoes still got some way to go. I maybe should have waited for the cilantro, considering now about half of my cilantro is like sticking to the pan, and these babies still don't have too much color in them. Like some do, yeah. You give it a little see, but like I don't know. I never claimed to be, you know, Martha Stewart or like Rachel Ray. So yeah. I swear I've done more complex shit than this from other cookbooks, and it hasn't had, well, that's wrong. The 5-layer mac and cheese might have been banging, but it had lots of technical difficulties in the middle. So yeah. I'm gonna crank up the meat for a second and just hope. We're hoping for the best. Just letting you know that, like, you might have to fluctuate with the what's it called? Also, update, I made the dogs go in the room because they're literally bumping into me and I don't want to get them splattered with oil. So, yeah. So, update. I have successfully accomplished something. I am one of the rare people out there who managed to fuck up a 2-step recipe. And, do I know how, folks? Here's how. Hang on. We'll consult our handy cookbook here. We go to page 4, where we know the recipe's at. Heat olive oil in large cast iron skillet. Saute onions until they are translucent. Add potatoes and cook until golden brown and warmed through. I'm like, what? Why are they still raw hard and all that stuff? I mean, they're good. They taste good, but I'm like, oh, that could be better. The ingredients say 3 cup potatoes peeled and boiled. So we were supposed to boil them and just skillet the onions. So it's still gonna taste good. I'm not gonna waste all of those veggies. So are we failures? I don't think so. But yeah, I think it's 48. They've been in this thing forever. This is as good as they're gonna get. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our lovely china. And this is my boyfriend's house and he doesn't have any real plates. So we're gonna take one of these and we're gonna get this money shot here. We're gonna just pour this delicately into our paper plate. I mean, they look soft now. I don't know. Maybe this can be saved. Next, we're gonna hang on. Okay. Now that I've had assistance in opening the little, I'm assuming child-safe lock on the salt and pepper, we can lightly pepper these babes. We can lightly, not so lightly, salt these babes. Here are the pups, by the way. That one's Holly. Come here. That's MJ. The thing is, she came with the name Sammy, but we're trying to change it. But she's gotten used to being called that. Okay. We have that. We're gonna find it safe considering there's no expiration date. Oh wait, yeah, there is. October of this year. It is safe. This is not for you, loves. Bless you. And then we're just gonna sprinkle the cheese like we know what we're doing. Yeah. Okay. Now. Yep. You're sitting like a good girl, but this isn't for you. Ooh, yes, it's sunk right in. Okay, we have a potato. And an onion. Fuck, this is good. So I would say I'm not a complete better. It's a little salty. I ended up putting a little excessive salt. But we can't all be perfect, you know? So that was my challenge. Yeah, it was beautiful. Oh my god, up the mountain. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe if you'd like to see more of my face and my books. I post the challenge videos for every single Reading Rush Booktubeathon challenge, so at least be sure to stay tuned for all of those. Bye.